Lishana Tova Tikatevu, Lishana Tova Tikatevu, Tikatevu, Lishana Tova, Lishana Tova Tikatevu, Lishana Tova Tikatevu, Tekatevu, Lishana Tova. Shana Tova. It's good to see so many of us gathered together in this sanctuary, socially distanced, of course. Friends who are watching online, welcome to Studio Beth Emick. Though we can't see you, I want you to know we can't see half the faces in this room either. It's a little like those cartoons of cats in the dark where all you see are the eyes. Well, just like we know that the whole person is here, we know that you watching online are fully here as well, and I welcome you. In fact, seeing is not the most important sense on Rosh Hashanah because the mitzvah of the holiday is bound up in hearing the sound of the shofar. May that sound help us recall the past and our own deeds, how we have each individually lived. May it remind us of what unites us as a community in this moment, wherever we might be. And may it call us to a vision of hope for the future, when we will have conquered not just this pandemic, but all the ills that keep us, our nation, and the world from fulfilling its potential. We are blessed throughout these high holy days with the musical leadership of our volunteer choir, and I am especially grateful to our choir director, John Cohen, and for the support provided by Beth Wilson. We begin our worship with the celebration of sacred space, Ma Tovu, on page 110. Page 120.
Blessed are you, Holy One, who has formed the human body with wisdom, an intricate network of channels, vessels, and openings. This wondrous structure and the flow of life within us allow us to serve you and give thanks. Let us cherish this gift of flesh and blood, honor it as God's creation. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofei kol basar, umafli la'asot. We praise you, Holy One, for wondrous acts of creation and healing.
Page 122. Elohai. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatatabi, Shenatatabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatatabi, Shenatatabi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Page 125.
We praise you, Adonai, our God, ruler of all time and space. We call you Pokeach Ivrim, the opener of blind eyes. Help us to see your world in a new light. We call you Malbish Arumim, the dresser of those without clothing. Help us to put on the garments of health and life. We call you Matir Asurim, the freer of captives. Help us to break the bonds that keep us locked within ourselves. We call you Zokef Kfufim, the straightener of bent backs. Help us to find the power to stand upright and proud. We call you Hamaychim Mitzadeh Gaver, the steadiness in our steps. Help us to understand our journey ever more clearly. We call you Hanotain Le'aef Koach, the source of strength for the weary.
Help us to be strong, to be a source of strength for those we love. Page 131. Esa Einai El Harim, Esa Einai El Harim, Me'ayin Yavo, Yavo Esri, Me'ayin Yavo, Yavo Esri, Me'ayin Yavo, Yavo Esri, Me'ayin Yavo, Yavo Esri. Where will my help come from? Where will my help come from? My help will come from God, maker of heaven and earth. My help will come from God, maker of heaven and earth. Where will my help come from? Where will my help come from? Esa Einai El Harim, Esa Einai El Harim, Me'ayin Yavo, Yavo Esri, Me'ayin Yavo, Yavo Esri, Me'ayin Yavo, Yavo Esri, Me'ayin Yavo, Yavo Esri. Where will my help come from? Where will my help come from? My help will come from God, maker of heaven and earth. My help will come from God, maker of heaven and earth. 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 Page 136.
Blessed are we, blessed our gathering, as we open our hearts to the voice of the shofar.
Happy are we who hear its call to return, the sacred trumpet of Teshuvah.
Blessed are we, held close by an ancient sound that echoes Lador Vador from generation to generation.
Happy are we, rising to the joyful cry of the new year.
Blessed are we who hear in these blasts of sound the voice of community.
Happy are we who know its embrace, its season of celebration, in its quest for connection and purpose.
Holy is this gift of community, blessed the act of belonging.
The shofar is sounded traditionally 3 times throughout the service, and this service has essentially what is a teaser call of the shofar to hear at the very beginning of the service to kind of like whet our spiritual appetite for what's to come. Tekiah, Shvarim Trua, Tekiah. We read together, blessed is the soul-reaching sound of the shofar. It proclaims the purpose of this day. Blessed is community, source of joy, solace, and strength to every living soul. Page 142. I invite you to rise as you are able for Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed. You may be seated.
Source of blessings, our eternal God, your power fills the cosmos, shaping light, creating darkness, making peace, and fashioning all things. Infinite light is preserved in life's treasure house. Lights from the darkness, said God. It was so. In love, you bring light to the earth and its creatures. Your goodness renews the creation each day. Infinite, varied, and rich are your works, divine artist. All of them wrought with wisdom, the whole earth is teeming with life. Awestruck by the universe, work of your hands, let all life bless you, praise you, and celebrate the beauty of your lights. May you shine a new light on Zion, and may we soon be privileged to share in that light. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMaorot. Our praise to you, Adonai, creator of the cosmic lights.
Adonai Eloheinu Chemla Gedola V'Terah Bavor Avotenu, V'imotenu, Shebatchu V'cha, V'tilamden Chukechayim, Kein Techonenu, Utilamdenu, Kein Techonenu, Utilamdenu, Chamalta aleinu, Chemla gedola, vitera, Chamalta aleinu. Page 150. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Page 157.
Love God with your mind. Stay curious, open to questions. Marvel at the wonder of what is. Love God with your heart. Stay alive to suffering and joy. Stay alive to suffering and joy. Yearn for the world that could be. Love God with your strength. Open your hands and give. Work for the sake of what ought to be.
Page 164. Mi kamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nor tehilot osefele. Shira chadasha, shibechu geulim l'shimcha, al sfatayam yachad kulam. Hodu vehim lechu. Adonai lo leolam vaed.
Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvtekinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu Adonai Tzivaot Shemo, Kadosh Yisrael. Baruch ata Adonai, Ba'al Yisrael.
Page 166. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia gitehilatecha. Adonai, open my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים. מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים חיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה.
אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע. מי כמוך אב הרחמים, זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל.
You may be seated. We continue on page 174.
Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires highest praise for your dominion. For your throne is a throne of love. Your reign is a reign of truth. In truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal, you record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten, and when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other. And so a great shofar will cry, Tekiah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, Behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes, even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd, as a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff. You count and consider every life. You set bounds, you decide destiny, you inscribe judgments.
Page 178.
On Rosh Hashanah, this is written. On the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted? But through the return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree.
O teshuva, o teshuva, o teshuva, o tefila, o tzedakah, ma'avirin et roa gzera, ma'avirin et roa gzera.
We're on page 180.
You are everything that we praise you for, slow to anger, quick to forgive. You do not wish the death of sinners, but urge them to return from their way and live. Until the day of death, you wait for them. You accept them at once if they return. Since you created us, you know our impulses. We are but flesh and blood. We who are mortal, our origin is dust, and so is our end. We wear out our lives to get our bread, life-broken vessels, like withered grass, like flower that must fade, a shadow moving on, a cloud passing by, mere dust on the wind, a dream that flies away. But for you, ever-living sovereign, time has no limits. Your presence, unbounded by days and years, is everywhere, a glorious mystery none can decipher. Your name is worthy of you, and you are worthy of your name. And our name you have linked with yours.
This setting for Kedusha may be unfamiliar to you, but it has a very singable chorus which repeats the core text of the Kedusha, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. And just like the angels who sing in heaven this refrain in the book of Isaiah, you get to move around when you sing it too. So I invite you to please rise, page 184. Kadesh et Shimcha ba'olam, Shemak Shimoto, Shmei Maro, Kakatuv al Yad Nivieta, Karazel Ze Ve'amar, Kakatuv al Yad Nivieta. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot. Kadosh, 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 Meloch ol haaretz kivodo. Adir, Adireinu, Adonai, Adonenu, Mahadir Shimcha bechol haaretz. Bechol haaretz, Baruch kivod Adonai, Adonai mimkomo, Baruch kivod kadosh, kadosh, Adonai Tzivaot. Kadosh, 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 Meloch ol haaretz kivodo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu, v'hu Yashmienu, v'rachamav leinei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, leinei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai, Adonai leolam. Elohai Yixion, Ador Vador, Hallelujah. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivaot. Kadosh, 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 Meloch ol haaretz. All right, now you know it. And Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzivaot. Kadosh, 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 Meloch ol haaretz. Kivodo, Kivodo, Kivodo. Page 205.
Dwell on each sound of the shofar, contemplate its meaning. Tekiah, one whole note. Shavarim teruah, 3 broken notes, 9 staccato notes. Tekiah, one whole note. My return to the right path has the power to make me whole again. Tekiah, once I was whole. Shavarim teruah, in the wear and tear of living, I became broken and shattered. Tekiah, my teshuvah has the power to make me whole again.
Find the shofar blessing on page 206. This is the traditional nusach, the traditional High Holy Day motif for the shofar blessing, just updated with a beat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Oh, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lasman hazeh. Got to get my order right here. Our shofar blowers, I know those of you who are online can't see them. I hope that you'll be able to hear them. They're outside the sanctuary. And that means even our folks here in the sanctuary might need to kind of like look around to see them on outside of the building. Our shofar blowers are Sammy Flansbaum, Sarah Dieringer, Geffen Kama, John Cohen, Beth Wilson, and Sharon Cohen. It sounds like the shofar call right now outside. That's not ours. Okay. Tekiah, Shvarim Trua, Tekiah, Tekiah, Shvarim, Tekiah, Tekiah, Teruah, Tekiah. You may be seated. Page 214. Our God, divine presence whose path our ancestors walked, bless us now with words first bestowed on Israel in the time of Moses and Aaron, the threefold blessing given us through Torah that joins our hopes with theirs. Yivarechacha Adonai v'yishmerecha, may you know God's blessings of shelter and care. May it be so. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha, may you receive the light of God's kindness and grace. May it be so. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, may you see God's favor and goodness, and may you partake of God's peace. May it be so. You could find words for silent prayer on pages 218 and 219. Elohai, Elohai, Nitzor, Lishoni Mera, Usvatai, Her Mirma, Elohai, 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 my God, protect my lips from lies. Strengthen my will to live my life in your light, Elohai. B'tach libi, b'toratecha, u'mitzvotecha, tirdof nafshi. Deep in my heart, where I find you, so I may live my life in peace. Elohai, Elohai, Nitzor, Lishoni Mera, Usvatai, Her Mirma, Elohai, Elohai. Our service continues now on page 224. that right? Yes, I did. Okay. Please rise. We read responsively, Avinu Malkeinu, we stand in awe, we draw close in love. Avinu Malkeinu, the power that passes through us and pervades all things. Avinu Malkeinu, the divine that is present within and among us. Avinu Malkeinu Shema Kolenu. Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lifanecha. We stand as one, accountable for our sins. Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu Va'al Ol Aleinu V'tapenu. We yearn for true compassion for our children most of all. Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Dever V'chera V'ra'av Me'aleinu. May we resist the ravages of illness, fear, and despair. Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Kol Tsar Umastin Me'aleinu. Let us summon courage to withstand our enemies. Avinu Malkeinu Kodvenu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim. Let the goodness of this gift of life be engraved upon our hearts. Avinu Malkeinu Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova. May we taste anew the sweetness of each day. Avinu Malkeinu Malei Yadenu Mibirchotecha. Let us wake up to the blessings already in our grasp. Avinu Malkeinu Chonenu Va'anenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Asei Imanu Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu Chonenu Vanenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Avinu Malkeinu Chonenu Vanenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Aseh Imanu Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. Aseh Imanu Tzedakah V'Chesed V'Hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu Chonenu Vanenu Ki Ein Banu Ma'asim. Ivan? Sorry. Are you reading?
The people of the book. Through fire and mud and dust we have borne our scrolls tenderly as babies swaddled in a blanket, traveling with our words sewn in our clothes and carried on our backs. Let us take up the scroll of Torah and dance with it and touch it and read it out. For the mind touches the word and makes it light. So does light enter us and we shine.
Adonai Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Adonai, 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 El Rachum V'Chanun, Adonai, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed V'Emet, Adonai, Notzer Chesed Lalafim, Nosei Havon V'Fesha, V'Chata'a V'Nakeh, Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum V'Chanun, Adonai, 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 El Rachum V'Chanun, Adonai. Please be seated. Thanks. Son. The Torah reading for the morning of Rosh Hashanah is Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. The name comes from a verb in the portion. Abraham bound his son Isaac, Vaya'akod. Notably, the portion is not called the sacrifice of Isaac or the offering of Isaac, even though Abraham is rewarded for offering his son. We sometimes find meaning peeking through the text. Perhaps another layer of the story which could be seen in the choice of words and what isn't said. I invite you to pay careful attention to language that might imply events that aren't explicitly stated, to which I shall return after our reading. And our Aliyah this morning will be recited by Lisa Regev. Ta'amod Galit Bat Amnon V'Shoshana. It's a prayer book to touch Torah. Oh, wait, where's this? Oh, it rolled. There it is.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai Havarach Leolam Va'ed.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים, ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Amen. Vayhi achar hadvarim ha'ela. It came to pass after these things. V'ha Elohim. Oh, you want to know what page we're on, don't you? Yeah. Page 240. There you go. Page 240. Let's try that again. Vayehi achar hadvarim ha'ela. It came to pass after these things, V'ha Elohim nisat Avraham, that God put Abraham to the test. Vayomer elav Avraham, and said to him, Abraham. Vayomer hineni, and he answered, Here I am. Vayomer kachna et bincha, et yechidcha, asher ahavta, et Yitzchak. God said, Take your son, your precious one, whom you love, Isaac, v'lech lecha el eretz haMoriah, and go to the land of Moriah. V'ha'alehu sham le'olah, al echad haharim asher omar elecha, and offer him up there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains which I will show you. Vayashkem Avraham baboker. So Abraham arose early in the morning, vayachavosh et chamoro, and he saddled his donkey, vayikach et shnei na'aravito, and he took his 2 servants with him, the et Yitzchak beno and Isaac his son. Vayivaka atzei olah, he split wood for the burnt offering, vayakom vayelech el hamakom asher amar lo ha'elohim, and he set off for the place of which God had spoken. Bayom hashlishi vayisa Avraham et einav. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up, vayar et hamakom merachok, and saw the place from afar. Vayomer Avraham el ne'arav, shvu lachem po im hachamor. So Abraham said to his servants, you stay here with the donkey. Va'aniva na'ar nelcha ad ko. The lad and I will go up there. V'nishtachaveh, v'nashuva alechem. We will pray and we will return to you. Vayikach Avraham et atzei ha'olah. So Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering, vayasem al Yitzchak beno, and he placed it on his son Isaac. Vayikach biado et ha'esh v'et ha'ma'al cheled, while he himself took the flint and the knife. Vayelchu shnehem yachdav, and the 2 of them set off together. Vayomer Yitzchak el Avraham avi, vayomer avi. Then Isaac said to his father Abraham, Father, vayomer hineni bani, and he answered, Here I am, my son. Vayomer hine ha'esh v'ha'etzim. And he said, I see the flint and the wood, v'ayehasel le'olah, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Vayomer Avraham, Elohim yireh lo hasel le'olah bani. And Abraham answered, God will see to the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. Vayalchu shneim yachdav, the 2 of them continued on together. Vayavo el hamakom asher amar lo ha'elohim, they came to the place of which God had spoken. Vayiven sham Avraham et hamizbeach, and Abraham built an altar there. Vaya'aroch et ha'etzim, and he arranged on it the wood. Vaya'akod et Yitzchak beno, and he bound his son Isaac. Vayasem oto ala mizbeach mima'al ha'etzim, and he placed him on the altar on top of the wood. Vayishlach Avraham et yado, vayikach et ha'ma'achelet lishchot et beno. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. Vayikra elav malach Adonai min hashamayim. Then an angel of God called to him from heaven, Vayomer Avraham, Avraham, and said, Abraham, Abraham. Vayomer hineni, and he answered, Here I am. Vayomer al tishlach yadcha el hana'ar. The angel said, Do not raise your hand against the lad, va'al ta'aslo me'uma, nor do the least thing to him. Ki ata yadati kirei Elohim ata. For now I know that you fear God. V'lo chasachta et bincha et yechicha mimeni. For you have not withheld your son, your precious one, from me. Vayisa Avraham et einav. Then Abraham looked up, Vayar, v'hine ayel achar ne'achaz b'sfach b'karnav. And he saw a ram behind him, caught in the thicket by its horns. Vayelech Avraham, vayikach et ha'ayel. So Abraham went and took the ram, vaya'alehu le'olah tachat beno. And he offered it up as an offering underneath, in place of his son. Vayikra Avraham shema makom hahu Adonai yireh. So Abraham called that place God sees. Asher ye'amer hayom bahar Adonai yireh. Which is why it is said to this day, on the mountain of God it is seen. Vayikra malach Adonai el Avraham shenit min hashamayim. Then the angel of God called to Abraham a 2nd time from heaven. Vayomer bi nishbati ne'um Adonai, and said, By myself do I swear, says God, ki ya'an asher asita et hadavar hazeh, because you have done this thing, v'lo chasachta et bincha et yechicha, and have not withheld your son, your precious one. Ki varecha varechacha, therefore I will greatly bless you. V'harbe arbe et zaracha, and I will multiply your descendants. Kechochveh hashamayim v'chachol asher al sfat hayam, like the stars in the sky, and like the sand on the shore of the sea. V'yirash zaracha et shar oivav, your descendants shall inherit the gates of their enemies. V'hid barchu v'zaracha kol goyei haaretz, and all the nations of the earth shall find blessing through your descendants. Ekav asher shamata b'koli, because you hearkened to my voice. Vayashov Avraham el ne'arav. So Abraham Abraham returned to his servants, Vayakumu vayalchu yachdav, and they set off together El Beersheva to Beersheba. Vayeshev Avraham beBeersheva, and Abraham dwelt in Beersheba.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. You shall confess that. And now we're going to lift the Torah to see the portion that we just heard. And as we do so, I invite you to please rise. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. I'm supposed to sing hallelujah. Miss my cue. Yes, we are. You sit down. Hallelujah, et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado. Odo haaretz v'shamayim, vayarem keret le'amo, tehila lechol nechol kasida. You may be seated. I begin this morning with one of those warnings that you sometimes hear on NPR. The story you are about to hear might not be suitable for young children. Parental discretion is advised. It is, of course, the story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. What is the story of the binding of Isaac all about? Some have argued that it is really about how Judaism distinguished itself from the pagan world by outlawing child sacrifice. Yes, Abraham would have done what was expected of those who were truly loyal to the gods, but ultimately, this is not what the God of Abraham desires. God desires faith, not human sacrifice. But that's not the only way to read the story. Au contraire. An alternative approach to the story is an approach known as form criticism, a way of doing literary analysis that was first applied to the Akedah by the historian Shalom Spiegel in his book, The Last Trial. On one level, wrote Spiegel, the Akedah is indeed about the transition in the ancient world from human to animal sacrifice. But on another level, it signifies the degree to which the theme of the sacrifice of the firstborn child persisted, even if only in story form, in the minds of a society long after the practice had been rejected. Form criticism is concerned with the elements that stories share in common across time and in different communities. Even though the end of the story in Genesis is that God prevents Abraham from sacrificing Isaac, Spiegel argues the essential elements of God, parent, child, and sacrifice are consistent with other stories about child sacrifice. It's not just that the same story appears in more than one cultural variation. Spiegel observes that the dimension of the story which spoke most powerfully to Jews at certain times in history is precisely God's commandment to Abraham to offer up Isaac, and not its conclusion with an angel saving Isaac from the knife. It's the tension, the crisis, which Jews understood even more than its resolution. How could this be, you might wonder? Doesn't Judaism abhor human sacrifice? Yes, it does. But that is not the psychic dimension in which stories operate. To delve into the psychic dimension where this story resonates is to enter into the darkest chapters of Jewish history. The 11th century of the Common Era marked a turning point in the history of Jews in Christian Europe. Until this time, Jews in France and Germany lived a generally integrated life with their Christian neighbors. Jewish scholarship abounded, and commentators like Rosh flourished. Toward the end of the 11th century, however, Pope Urban II advocated a crusade to liberate the Holy Land from the Muslims. Along the way, the Crusaders slaughtered the Jews living in their midst. One chronicler wrote, "We desired to combat the enemies of God in the East, but we have one under our eyes, the Jews, a race more inimical to God than all the others." The first massacres took place in 1096 at the start of the First Crusade. In the Rhineland, Jews in the city of Worms sought refuge in the palace of the bishop, where they were subsequently killed. Others were stripped naked and dragged off. In 2 days, 800 Jews were killed in a single city. A few days later, 700 Jews in the city of Mainz were murdered. In town after town, Jews were given the choice of baptism or death, a forced conversion to Christianity being seen in some monstrous way as a victory for Christ. Overwhelmingly, Jews chose death. In the first 6 months of the First Crusade, 10,000 Jews were killed. No barbarous genocide would compare with the Crusades until the Nazis attempted to accomplish the same purpose 8 centuries later. Out of the experience of martyrdom during the Crusades emerged a new literature in Judaism, a martyrology. The story of Rabbi Amnon of Mainz, the Unatana Tokef prayer, who shall live and who shall die, is incorporated into our service for Yom Kippur. The rabbis struggled to find meaning in these senseless deaths that defied reason and destroyed forever the security of Jews in Europe. The death of the martyrs had not been in vain, they said. They had refused to abandon their faith when others tried to make them do so. Therefore, they had died al Kiddush Hashem, for the sanctification of God's name on earth. Jews did not die without defending themselves. But seeing the hopelessness of their fate, they often chose suicide, rather than be compelled to accept baptism or allow the women and children to be assaulted by the Crusaders. And so, mothers and fathers killed their daughters and sons, and then themselves. Where is God, the survivors may have asked? Has God ever asked this of us? Yes. They found meaning, identity with the greatest exemplar of faith in Judaism, Abraham, the father, who responds to God's call to demonstrate his faith and slaughter his own son. What God asked of Abraham is exactly what God asks of us, they said. The story of the Akedah helped strengthen these Jews to defy a monstrous evil. The Akedah becomes a model for Kiddush Hashem during the Crusades, not because of the way the story ends, but precisely because the crisis it portrays seemed so real. Never in the martyrologies of the Crusades do we find the rabbis arguing that Abraham did not have to sacrifice as much as they did. Why not? If the Akedah ends with Isaac being saved, doesn't it follow that Jews in medieval Europe would argue that God was unfair, that God had asked of them a greater sacrifice than what had been demanded of Abraham? Spiegel argues that the reason Jews could see themselves in the story of the Akedah is that a popular tradition had existed that Isaac actually had been sacrificed. One might argue that this contradicts the biblical text, but as you know, the rabbis of yore often felt at liberty to interpose storylines into the Torah, to expand the tale, incorporating folklore that may have existed as an oral tradition in order to emphasize certain themes. This was the case in the early rabbinic period, when the rabbis imagined that each of the three prayers of our Amidah was formulated by one of the patriarchs. Abraham recited the Avot prayer, Isaac recited Gevurot, Jacob the Kedusha. What is the theme of Gevurot, that second prayer that Isaac recited? Although we are familiar with the prayer in its Reform version, we praise you, Eternal, who gives life to all, Mechayeh HaKol. In the traditional prayer book, the prayer concludes, Blessed are you, God, who gives life to the dead, Mechayeh Meitim. Now, who best exemplifies faith in God's power to resurrect the dead? Isaac. Thus we find a midrash ascribed to Rabbi Judah. When the sword touched Isaac's throat, his soul flew out of him. When God said, Lay not thy hand upon the lad, his soul returned to his body. Then Isaac rose, knowing that in this way the dead would come back to life in the future, whereupon he began to recite, Blessed are you, Eternal One, who gives life to the dead. Another midrash is more specific about Isaac's death. When Isaac was bound on the altar and reduced to ashes, and his sacrificial dust was cast on Mount Moriah, goes the midrash, the Holy One of Blessing immediately brought upon him dew. Dew is also part of the Gevurot prayer, and revived him. Then the angels began to recite, Blessed are you, Eternal One, who gives life to the dead. In the shofar service, in the second section, which we're about to come up to, called Zichronot, Remembrances, we recall how Abraham conquered his fear and bound his son Isaac, and we pray that God's mercy will conquer God's attribute of justice. In one prayer book, we find the following supplication. Remember, God, the ashes of Father Isaac, heaped up on top of the altar, and deal with your children in accordance with your attribute of mercy. Isaac's ashes, his sacrificial dust. Clearly there was a rabbinic tradition that read the story as though the sacrifice had actually happened, and saw in it both the ultimate statement of devotion to God as well as an affirmation of the doctrine of resurrection of the dead. Could a story have existed alongside the text of the Torah for centuries, finding renewed significance in the dark days of the Crusades? A 12th century poem on the Akedah by Rabbi Ephraim of Bonn may echo this older legend. Down upon him fell the resurrecting dew, and he revived. The father seized him then to slaughter him once more. Scripture bear witness, well grounded is the fact, and the Lord called to Abraham even a second time from heaven. The ministering angels cried out, terrified. Even animal victims, were they ever slaughtered twice? It is not only the older legend that we hear. We hear the cry of anguish of those who have experienced so much suffering, it seems as though they themselves have been slaughtered twice. Was Isaac actually sacrificed? It is not a question that can be answered. There's no historical record to speak of. What we have instead is a legend, a myth, which speaks to us in a certain way. More importantly, we never know what meaning will emerge from myth. Meaning is buried deep in what Jung called the collective unconscious. The sacrifice of Isaac became an important motif for the period of the Crusades. We, in our rationalist stance, assuming that religion grew from the primitive to the more advanced, often fail to recognize the enduring dimensions of our own sacred myths. What is the lesson we learn from these hidden tales in our tradition? We return to the Torah, which understood what was primary. God longs for our devotion, but abhors that which is an affront to human dignity. Even when Jews in the Middle Ages saw their own lives being played out against the backdrop of an ancient legend of the sacrifice of Isaac, it was a bitter lament against the monstrous evil of the Crusades. Look at what they made us do. See, God, how they assault human dignity and defile the image of God. But our father Abraham had courage, they said. Isaac had courage, and we will too. God forbid that such days should ever come upon us again. We prefer the story the way the Torah tells it. Do not raise your hand against the lad. Yet there is a lesson in the Torah's tale and in the strange and painful legend that accompanied it. Courage, and not fear, gives us new life. At the beginning of a new year, whatever challenges we face, however bound we find ourselves or the world around us, there is hope for a new beginning, a return to a meaningful life. Remember, our prayer book tells us, the courage of Abraham and Isaac. When we remember, God remembers, and we find the strength to begin our lives anew. Page 267.
God of remembrance, remember the covenant of our ancestors. We reaffirm it today. Remember, we are people of noble ideals. Help us attain them. Remember all your people, all the nations on the road to peace. Bless their efforts. Remember with mercy the binding of Isaac, the sorrow of Sarah, Abraham's words, "Here I am." Our memory fades, but you remember all that we have forgotten. Your presence is a throne where all things matter and nothing is lost. Baruch atah Adonai, Zocher haberit. Blessed are you, Adonai. You remember the covenant. You remember us.
Thanks, David. We rise for the sounding of shofar in Zichronot. Tekiah. Shvarim Trua. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shvarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah. You may be seated. Page 283.
I know that poverty must cease. I know this through the brokenness and conflict in my heart. I know that protest is my most prophetic act, and that the world is longing for a new soul, a new healing moment. I know that when we awaken to our origins and become truly human, we bring hope to the children and to the earth. I feel called today to bring the people together to break the bread and tell the story. I feel called today to be a mystic in action, aligned to the dynamics of the universe. I feel called today to give my gift, to listen to the heartbeat of the broken world, to heal the fragmentation of people and planet. I feel called today to celebrate the wonder of creation and respond to the sacredness and the challenges of life. I feel called today to participate in the work of my time, to fall in love, to feel at home. I feel called today to be inflamed with enduring hope, to be at one with the universe, to be touched by God. I feel called today to compose a new paragraph for life.
Page 284, and now we go to the third set of shofar calls. Shofar wrote, please rise. Baruch atah Adonai, shomea kol turat amo Yisrael barachamim. Blessed are you in our lives, Adonai. You hear with love the shofar, true voice of your people, Israel. Tekiah. Shvarim truah. Tekiah. Tekiah. Shvarim. Tekiah. Tekiah. Teruah. Tekiah Gdolah. We continue with Aleinu on page 286.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula l'otzir bereshit, shelo asanu kokoye ha'aratzot, v'la'asamanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kochol hamonam, v'nachnu korim, u'mishtagavim u'modim, Lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. Shehu notei shamayim beyosed haaretz, umoshav yekara b'shamayim mimahal, ushchina tutzo, b'kohei miromim. Hu Eloheinu ein hod, emet malkeinu efezulato, Kakatu, Bedorato, Vayadahayom, Vayadahayom, Bahashevo ota elevavecha. Ki Adonai hu Elohim, bashamayim mimahal, ve'aretz mitachat einod, ve'nemar, vayaha Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Page 291. Our thoughts turn to loved ones whom death has taken from us in recent days, and those who died at this season in years past. Our hearts open as well to the wider circles of loss in our community and wherever grief touches the human family. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be a blessing in this new year and always. Mourner's Cottage, page 292. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei rabbah mivarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudishah b'richu. Le'ela u'le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechmata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace bestow peace on all who mourn, and may we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, amen. Please be seated. And Max, you have some announcements to share with us?
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
My name is Max Norman. I'm the president of Congregation Beth Emek. Before I share some announcements, I'd like to thank Rabbi Milder and our many dedicated volunteers for leading us in worship this morning, including our dynamic choir, whose passion and musicality no mask can contain, and our many shofar blowers. Thank you for the rousing rendition of Shofar in the Round several times, and congratulations to Sharon for retaining her title for most sustained Tekiah Gedolah. I think that's 5 or 6 years in a row. Also, thank you to our behind-the-scenes crew and tech mensches for supporting and maintaining our live stream service. I'm told they both enable and enjoy eating cookies. Thank you. At 2 p.m. today, right here in the courtyard, is our family service. Please join us for singing and a child-focused event. Please bring plenty of water, although there will be tents and shade. For more information about this or any upcoming high holiday service, please visit the home tab of our website. Consult the once around or check your email, as we did circulate service details. You may be wondering why there is no table in the lobby on which you can donate canned goods for our annual high holiday food drive. That's because this year the food drive is entirely virtual. Throughout September, we are collecting online donations to support the Alameda County Community Food Bank. The link is available in the once around, or you can mail or drop off a check made payable to Congregation Beth Emek with food drive in the memo. Are you looking for ways to broaden your understanding of Judaism, improve your Hebrew, or learn a trope? Now you can do all three. Registration is now open for our 3 adult education classes, starting September 12th online, Hebrew from the Heart with Janice Ellis Milder. September 30th, Rabbi Milder will be our guide exploring the great Jewish books with People of the Book. This class is available online or in person. And our 3rd class, starting after the non-Jewish New Year on the 9th of January, is Learn to Chant Haftorah, taught in person by Rabbi Milder. For additional information and all the links to register, please see the Once Around newsletter in your email or our website. Thank you.
For our closing song, we turn to page 294. Okay. Ready? Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai dai dai. Yai dai dai dai. Hi-yo. Te'amseinu hi-yo. Tivarcheinu hi-yo. Tigadleinu. Amen. Hayom tidrashenu, litova. Hayom tiftavenu, l'chaim tovim. Hayom tishma shabbatenu. Amen. Hayom te'amseinu hayom. Tivarcheinu hayom. Tigadleinu, Amen. Hayom tikabel berachamim uvratzon et tefilatenu. Hayom titbrechenu b'min tzidkecha. Amen. Hayom te'amseinu hayom. Tivarcheinu hayom, tigadleinu, amen, amen, amen. L'shana tova tikatevu.